This is Jesus in John chapter 17, beginning in verse 4. I have glorified you on the earth by completing the work you gave me to do. Now, Father, glorify me in your presence with that glory I had with you before the world existed. The virgin birth was not arbitrary. It was by the virgin birth that the pre-extant Jesus, meaning he existed before, would enter the world and be fully human and fully God, bypassing the sin nature that we all inherited from Adam and Eve, or would have wrought about manifest through our own sins anyway. Jesus existed before the world. This is how the gospel opened. Apart from Jesus, not one thing was made that has been made. Right? In him was life, that life was the light of men, that light shines in our darkness, and our darkness has not overcome him. He is now at the eve of the cross, returning to the glory that he had before. That's incredible news. This means that Jesus is superior to us in that he pre-existed. It is by this we know that he is the Logos, that primordial personification of logic himself. If logic were a person, he'd be Jesus, because he is. So Jesus is going back to the Father. This also bears some theological implications for what happened to Jesus on the cross. What happened the moment that Jesus died? Did Jesus go to hell, as was recorded in some of the earlier versions of the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed? With Jesus going to hell, is that the earthly regions that he descended to? We'll talk more about this as we continue. I do not believe that Jesus descended into hell. I'll talk more about that. We'll unpack 1 Peter chapter 3 and cross-reference Jude and even Genesis 6. It's going to get weird. It's going to get fun. But the point of this text, the beautiful purpose of this text, is that you would know Jesus has been glorified as he was before the world existed. There is not a thing in this world that you and I are going to face that Jesus didn't pre-exist and already stand in victory over. Imagine time itself as an arc, standing, and God himself as a fixed point in empty geometric space, has no beginning and no end, and holds in his hand all of time itself, the beginning and the end. He is then the Alpha and he is the Omega. I was sitting by our fire pit with some of our students just last week talking about exactly this, where this fire pit is how God is able to exist simultaneously at every point in history, with each of the stones around the fire pit representing some point in human history. And we're somewhere perhaps on this side of the ark. We could be right before his return. We could be several decades away. We don't know. What we do know is that Jesus existed before, and he's already sitting in victory over the things that overwhelm us. He then overwhelms the things that overwhelm us. It's by this pre-extant nature and timeless attribute that he was able to forecast what would happen to him before it happened, to even forecast and prophesy what would happen to the temple in Matthew chapter 24, that would happen years after his ascension into heaven. This is one of the many things that makes Jesus superior to us, is the fact that he existed before the earth existed. Man, doesn't that mean you can trust his teachings? Doesn't that mean that his word is truer than your stress? Doesn't that mean that what he says is truer than the latest fad teaching? Do you know of any of the competing philosophies that existed in the day of Jesus at that time? Because I don't. Do you know what was stressing people out while Jesus spoke these words to his disciples, meanwhile nearby in the city of Jerusalem? You know that there were people who were feeling stressed about something, but none of that matters anymore, does it? Because the one who existed before the foundations of the earth was about to go and return to the glory that he had before. I'm going to take the pre-existing one's words over any philosopher of any age, because not one of them, not Tony Robbins, not Oprah, not Deepak Chopra, like not one of them existed before the world. Jesus did. And it was he who told us, in this life you're going to have trouble, but take heart, I have conquered the world. My darkness is lit up. I hope yours is too. Now go share the light.